Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Hashtag Anxiety Podcast. I'm Cassie here with the amazing LolaB.
Hi, everybody. We're so glad you're here.
We are so glad you're here. Today, we are going to be talking about EFT tapping. And like always, we are going to give our disclaimers that we are not licensed clinical or medical professionals in any way, shape, or form. And there might be some swearing happening.
Yes, but I would also like to say that I know zero things about EFT tapping, really. I mean, very little. So I intend to just be a participant as opposed to, driving the bus, which sometimes I do. And I'm sorry, because I don't really mean to always drive the bus. But that means I think my swearing will be at a minimum today because I can't wait to learn from you. And I can't fathom why I would swear about EFT tapping. So I'm excited.
You'd think your swearing will be at a minimum, but my favorite thing about EFT tapping is it gives you full permission to really put words into what's actually happening for you. And a lot of time for me, there's swear words involved.
This is
That's the
great news.
greatest thing
Okay.
about it.
I'm twice as excited now.
It's my wheelhouse.
Okay. I'm thrilled. Ready, set, go.
So for those of you who have zero idea what EFT tapping is, it stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. And legitimately, you are just tapping on certain meridian points throughout the body, tapping or putting light pressure on to those different points. And kind of the goal is to really let yourself experience and feel and put words into what's actually happening to you. And it's going to downregulate your nervous system. So it's amazing for a lot of things: blood pressure, PTSD, anxiety, getting clarity, money, all of that good stuff. So it's incredible. It's such a cool thing that you can add to your surf kit if you find that it's your jam. It's definitely in my surf kit. I tap all the time before I speak, before I do something that makes me nervous. If I'm just overwhelmed, I think we talked about on another episode, sometimes just being around a ton of people like suck the energy out of you and they makes you anxious. So I often will sneak away to a public bathroom, whether I'm at a conference or in the airport, and just do a few rounds of tapping because it kind of just calms your nervous system down, makes you feel great. It's awesome. There's also a few cheats that I'll share with you too. So if you're not in a place or space where you can, look like a weirdo tapping on your body, there's a couple of cheats that we'll talk about.
Before you do that, will you tell me how you got into it? Like how were you introduced to it and where it started?
Yeah. I don't actually even remember my first interaction with EFT tapping, but through work, I'd heard a couple of different amazing practitioners speak about it.
Yeah.
I've used it. Like I tried it for a variety of different things. I used it when I was going through a divorce. I used it like when I want to ask for a raise or just like randomly. A few of the points, one of them is your collarbone, like right underneath your collarbone. And I realized I tapped that one unconsciously even before I knew what EFT tapping was. And a lot of times people will have spots where it feels extra good, or they notice like, oh my gosh, I've been tapping on that point, like even before I knew about this crazy
That's
tapping
so
thing.
interesting. I love that. It's just part of our bodies knowing kind of what we need. And sometimes if we pay a little bit of attention, it makes total sense. So that's cool. Okay. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to know where it came from.
That's awesome. I'm glad you asked that. So people come to tapping different ways. Some people have seen it on Facebook or YouTube. There's a ton of different videos and resources. So you can do tapping by yourself, alone in your room, alone in your car, alone in an airport bathroom. You can do it with a practitioner. I've done some training. There's a lot of different practitioners. I do also give the disclaimer of just find what works for you because everyone will do it a little bit differently. Everyone will say a few different things. In general, you'll find tapping on YouTube that will start with a setup statement. So all tapping sessions will start with a setup statement on the side of your hand. It's your karate chop point. So you'll start tapping there and you'll use a setup statement. So even though I'm feeling really anxious right now, and then you follow it kind of with an acceptance statement. And on YouTube, the acceptance statement is often, even though whatever is going on, whatever you're pissed about, anxious about, whatever's happening. And then the follow-up statement is something like, I love and accept myself, which makes me want to vomit in my mouth. Like, I can't say that. That's the dumbest thing in the world to me. And it just pisses me off to say
This
it.
is why we're friends right there.
I'm like, ugh, I love and accept myself.
Same,
And
yeah.
if you are someone who can say something, follow it up with, I love and accept myself, good for you. That is awesome. I'm not there yet. It's not for me. So I just will say something like, it is what it is. It is whatever.
Okay.
So to make it less confusing, I'm going to go over all of the tapping points with you, and then I can give you an example. Does that sound
Perfect.
good?
Yes, because I'm
Awesome.
like a visual learner and also my
Okay.
memory is crap. So remembering what I'm supposed to do and say, I'm so shy and worried and right now anxious about, oh, I hope that I don't have to do this perfectly by the end of the thing. I can't. But I'm going to watch you like a hawk. And then I'm thrilled we're recording it because I'm going to go back and watch my own self try to figure this out. And I love that you'll give examples because that makes it more solid for me in my head.
Yeah. So my second favorite thing about EFT tapping is you literally cannot do this wrong. So that's
Yeah, you sure about that? Really?
So we'll see. You could be the first person to mess it up.
I'm
No.
pretty sure. Okay.
So when you do EFT tapping, you first start on the side of your hand. So like the
Okay.
karate chop point. And for people listening on the podcast, we also do upload videos of our podcast recording. So if you're not following along on the audio version and you want a visual version, make sure to check out our YouTube page at #anxiety podcast. So you can see us tap along, and it looks
I'll just
ridiculous,
do it
but it
down
works.
here so maybe folks don't have to see me karate chopping out of control. I'll let you be on camera and I'll just do my little thing.
Okay. So
Okay.
you start on the side of your hand, so karate chop point, and that's where you do that setup statement. So even though whatever is going on, whatever issue you're wanting to tap on, or just general thing that you want to focus on, you start with that. So even though I'm feeling anxious, and then this is where you would say love on or accept myself if that's your jam, or you just say I'm just anxious today. Like that's the acceptance part of it. So you do that 3 times. And then you'll find if you watch different videos on YouTube or look different things up, people start in different spots. Sometimes people add a few extra points, but how I do it and how I tap with people is I start on the top of your eye. So it's like right where your eyebrow starts, and you can tap 1 finger, 2 fingers, both sides, whatever feels right for you.
Okay.
And then the next point is the side of your eye. So basically, if you were to take your cheekbone and your eyebrow and it made like a little V.
The V.
Yeah, so kind of just right on the side of your eye. And then under your eye. So kind of, it feels good. It's like right on your sinuses.
Yeah.
And then the next point is just under your nose. And then your chin point. So kind of like right in the middle
Like
of your
in
chin.
the divot of between your chin and your lip?
Chin, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah. And then my favorite one, the collarbone. So it's right under your collarbone, actually. So not on the bone. And
Not on the bone, but on the fleshy part just underneath?
Yeah, on that fleshy
Okay.
good part.
Okay.
And the pressure, it should just feel good.
Okay.
And then the next one is under your armpit. So you can reach across your body and tap, or use one arm straight down and tap if that's easier.
Okay.
Imagine if you're a woman wearing a bra, it's right where your bra sits. If you're not wearing a bra, imagine where the bra would be. It's right at that point.
Okay.
And then the cheek point that I always add in are the inside of your wrists. So I usually tap with both hands. So kind of like right where if you're wearing a watch, right where your watch would be.
Okay.
And then the top of your head. I don't know if
And you go in a circle?
I go in a circle. I might just have a sensitive head. I actually fell out of the back of a pickup when I was a kid, horsing around with my cousin. So I have like a soft head or soft spot on my head. So I kind of tap in a circle, but you can just tap in one spot if you find a spot.
Okay.
And that's it. And then you do that 3 or 4 times.
So you don't say anything while you're tapping. The words are only as you're prepping on the karate chop before you tap?
You'll actually say words as you tap if you're comfortable, or if you're in a place that you can do that. If you're in a public bathroom saying things out loud, you might feel a little crazy. You might just say them to yourself, or you can just kind of tap along.
Okay.
Typically what I have people do, or what you should do for yourself, is kind of on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you at? So if you're tapping on anxiety, where are you at with your anxiety? If you were at a 5 or a 6 when you start, just kind of pay attention to that and know that as you're tapping, it might go up a little bit before it goes down. And our goal is to get to 0. You might not always get to 0, but you might get from, say, a 7 to a 3, and that's a big improvement. If you do find that you're tapping and your 4 is going to a 7 and then it's to a 9 and it's feeling too much, tapping might be too activating, actually. So what you can do is just press a little bit, light pressure on the point, and take deep breaths in and out. And that'll help kind of naturally lower your nervous system.
Wow.
Is this as clear as mud now?
It's really good, but will you do like just do one and I can watch?
Absolutely. So I'll do kind of just a made up scenario around anxiety. I wish I was feeling, I never say this. I wish I was feeling more anxious right now so I could really get into it.
I'm anxious enough for both of us.
Yeah.
So.
So there's also, before we do this, there's also something called like secondary benefits from tapping. So even if the words that I'm saying, you're like, I'm really not even anxious at all, but you're tapping along, you're still going to get some benefits. If the words that I'm using don't work for you and you're tapping along with us, change them to the words that work for you or what you're actually feeling. Because it's really important if you're doing it for yourself and you've got something going on to say what resonates with you.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll start on the karate chop point.
Okay.
And just tapping lightly. So even though it sucks having anxiety and I'm feeling anxious, I just have anxiety and sometimes I'm anxious. And even though I just hate having anxiety, the fact is I have anxiety. And even though I'm super anxious about my event on Friday, it's going to be okay. I've done all the planning I can do. And then you'd move to the eye. And if there was something in particular that was causing you anxiety, so I'm going to use this fake event that I have coming up. Okay. So, but whatever you have going on, you're going to tap with that particular thing. So this event on Friday, I don't even want to fucking do it. And then you're going to move to the side of your eye. I hate that I have to do this shit sometimes. And then you're going to move to under your eye. I got to get up early, which I hate doing. And then under your nose. I mean, who plans an event at 7 a.m. anyway? And then your chin. And I have to interact with people during COVID. And I want them all to be wearing masks, but they're not going to be. And then you'd move to your collarbone. And there's so many things you have to plan when you do an event. And then under your arm. I really just don't want to do it. And then this is where I sneak in the wrist points. But at least some people I like are going to be there, I guess. And then to the top of your head. And my favorite coffee shop is catering. I guess that's okay. And then you would go through again, as long as you had things to talk about and rant about, you would go through the whole system again. And I kind of tried to plug in there. If you notice, there was a little shift of I was anxious, I was pissed. And then I was like, but maybe like I get to see people I like, or at least my favorite coffee shop is going to be there and it's going to be a good cup of coffee. That's something that will naturally happen when you're doing EFT tapping. You'll start off angry and pissed and whatever. And then there's like a point of natural shift that happens where you're like, you know what? I'm not feeling as anxious as I was, or I could see this positive thing, or it sucks and it's stupid. At least I'm still not pissed about it.
That's so interesting that it does it naturally, that it kind of comes. That's phenomenal. Again, it's your body taking care of you, I guess.
It's really fascinating. So if you're very new, if this is the first time you've ever heard of EFT tapping, if you've never done it on something like a real hot button issue, it might be helpful to work with a practitioner, because a lot of times unconsciously you'll have tells as you're tapping. So usually what'll happen is when you're working with a practitioner, they'll lead kind of the discussion and start off like, okay, I can tell we're pissed about this. We're going to start tapping about this. Okay. And then you'll kind of give some cues as to like, oh, it doesn't seem like it's resonating anymore. Maybe something shifted. And then now you're kind of off on that track of what else came up. And so they can kind of help guide you through that process. I've done tapping for years and years, so I feel like I get that place naturally a little bit easier than when I first started. When I first started, I'd be, pissed at a level 10 about something, and I'd maybe make it to a 9.5. And there wasn't a lot of natural down regulating. Improvement, but not a ton. And
Yeah.
now I can kind of get there a little faster.
I can see where a practitioner could help you kind of guide that process and just lead you down the path so you don't stay stuck in the anger or the frustration or the anxiety. They give you a kind of a path to follow to get there until your body can catch up.
Yeah. It's really interesting because anxiety, at least in my experience, it is a full body
Yeah.
experience. So even if I look cool, calm, and collected on the outside, internally, my nervous system is firing all kinds of different things and I'm holding it together. And I think for me, the tapping really just kind of helps release all of that instead of holding on to it forever.
I'm excited to try it. You and I were talking before we came online about some stuff that's going on with me, and I was telling you that when all the stuff went down with my ex and he was arrested and all that crazy stuff, I was terrified. Like there was a lot that was going down, and we didn't know who was showing up at the house and the FBI and the cops and the whatever. So I was really afraid for an extended period of time, not just a day, but weeks. So my one of the things that I noticed physically that was happening in terms of my anxiety was my startle response was through the roof. So I would, something unexpected would happen, even if it was just, let's say a piece of silverware fell on the floor off the counter and I mean, I would just take these gasping deep breaths and my heart is racing, just really over the top reactions to something that you wouldn't normally have an over the top reaction to. It took a while for that to settle down, and I don't do that anymore unless my anxiety is like a 9, and then that startle response comes back. And I'd like to get better at that, to have it not be quite so intense, because I end up scaring myself. It's silly, like something startles me and and then I'm twice as anxious and twice as freaked out, and it's like, oh my gosh, just freaking calm down, it's not that big a deal. But my body is reacting, and I feel like I'm out of control. I don't have a lot of control over that particular thing that my body is doing, and I'm excited to try the EFT tapping thing to see if that can downregulate my startle response so that I'm less, I don't know, freaked out. So my body relaxes more, because I feel like it's almost involuntary, and I'm a grown ass woman. I don't want it to be involuntary. I want to control it, or at least have it be better. So I'm anxious to try this to see if it will help.
My gut instinct is yes, it definitely will help. And you can also tap on everything you just said now. So you could be tapping while you're talking about that story, while you're thinking about it to yourself.
Oh,
Everything you said right now could be things that you tap on. So like, oh, I'm so pissed that it's involuntary. Like I'm a grown ass woman, and tap through that, and tap through like, I don't like it and I don't know why I still have it and it should be done by now, but it's not. And all of those things.
okay. So it's almost like, well, maybe not almost like, but telling yourself the story of whatever's happening. I'm telling the story, and as I'm telling the story to myself, I'm tapping through it and letting my body do what it can naturally to help bring those feelings in line. Is
Mhm.
that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the most condensed version of EFT tapping.
Yeah.
There are different ways or different modalities of
Yeah.
EFT tapping. So there is like tap and talk, where you're just, or tap and rant, where you're just like bitching about whatever you need to complain about, like whatever you really need to put into words that you've spent the whole day acting like everything is great. And then you get to tap on like all the bullshit that actually happened, right? Like the professional email version of your day, and then what you want to tell your best friends. You get to tap on all of that stuff.
Okay.
So there's also like just telling the story. So as you're telling the story, kind of tapping around all of that stuff. And then there's a few different things. I mean, EFT tapping it's so diverse. And like I said, you literally can't do it wrong. So you miss a tapping point, cool, hit it next time, no big deal. There's a special extra training, which I haven't done, but I want to do for EFT tapping on your pets. Which, funny story, I texted you this week. We had to take the Frenchie to the vet because he's licking like incessantly, to the point where I actually have to stop my work day and like take him out of the room or put some earplugs in because he's licking so much.
Oh, bless his heart.
And he's always licked, but it's like a whole lot. So I was like,
Yeah.
something must be wrong, which he does have an ear infection. So we are treating that. But the vet has seen him a few times and brought up that he thinks the Frenchie has OCD tendencies and might need to be medicated for that, which made me almost laugh out loud.
So tapping might work on the Frenchie?
The tapping can work. And actually,
That's cool.
though I haven't been trained in the specifics of pet tapping, the Frenchie's had a lot of trauma. He just turned 3 this weekend. It was his 3rd birthday, but he's been through a lot of different surgeries and like near-death experiences and had IVDD, which is common in Frenchies. And basically it's like bulging disc disease. So he had a point where he was fine in the morning. We went for a little jog. By the afternoon, couldn't use his legs. He was rushed to the emergency room, had to have surgery.
He's traumatized and you're traumatized.
Everybody is very traumatic, but I had just gotten trained in EFT tapping and as he had to do his crate rest, which he hated. Talk about giving me anxiety. He hated his crate rest so much. So I would just kind of do a few little round, like tap on his little head by his eye, kind of like down on his chest to like calm him down enough to be able to not hurt himself.
Yeah. Did you notice a difference?
Maybe it was the meds kicking in, trazodone.
Either way, it's a win.
He did calm down a bit.
Yeah.
I calmed down while tapping on him.
Well, there you go. And it probably, if you're calmer, he's calmer. So
it helps. There's also some studies that show like kiddos have great response to EFT tapping if they're not comfortable like tapping on themselves. There's actually research where if they're tapping on like a teddy bear, tapping on the points on the teddy bear, they get some of the secondary benefits. If you are a nerd like me and you want to look more into the research, because obviously we can't go into all of that in this podcast or we'll bore you to death, EFTinternational.org has a whole link about a ton of different research that's been done on a variety of different things. So anxiety, like I mentioned, PTSD, all kinds of different stuff. So you can look it up for anything from high blood pressure to sleep problems.
Maybe we can tag them in the post. If they have a social media presence, we'll tag them and tell them we think they're cool, and then folks can find them easier also.
Absolutely.
Oh, this is so cool, Cassie. Thank you. Is there anything else we need to know?
I mentioned I'm going to go over a few cheat points. So if you're somewhere that you like literally can't, if you're sitting in the middle of the meeting and you're losing your mind, we talked about this in our episode with Dr. Hawkins about having to read in class. So I wish I would have known this in 5th grade or 4th grade or any corporate meeting where I was going to
last week.
So there's a few points that you can do. Like say you're sitting at a desk in a meeting, the sides of your fingers, like right at your fingernails. And for those of you watching the video, I had some anxiety this week, so my fingernails are all ripped off. But the sides of your fingers, if you just like pinch, kind of go through.
Yeah.
And pinch the side of your fingers and take a breath. That will help down regulate your nervous system a little bit.
Wow.
That's a cheat point.
That's
so
a good one.
I don't care anymore because I'm old and I just tap the collarbones. But if you're not wanting to tap, you can literally just kind of like, rub a little bit. And the side of your eye is the easy one to like rub.
Yeah.
Just kind of sit with some pressure, your face in your hands and some pressure. You can rub your nose. So you're hitting the point underneath your nose. You can sit with your chin in your hand. So you're kind of hitting that point a little bit. Always adjust the bra, stretch out. So you get that point under your armpit, or even just like hanging onto your wrist. So you get those cheat points at your wrist.
That's brilliant. And I'm with you. I wish I would have known that forever ago because that's brilliant. I'm in meetings all the time and I get anxious. So that's cool. And Dr. Hawkins talked about the bracelets on her wrist and how she plays with those, and that's helped. So I'm sure it's all part of that same kind of thing. And part of it, I also like EFT tapping because I like the ritual part of it, that it makes,
so do I.
yeah, it's ritualistic and makes sense and feels ritualistic. So I really think that's cool.
The other thing I always tell people, like there's no set number, like you don't have to do it 3 rounds or 5 rounds. I have OCD. I always have to do a certain number of rounds.
Sure.
You don't have to. It's just until you start feeling better. And like I said, if you notice like you're going up a little bit, maybe stop tapping and just do the light pressure and breaths in and out. If you're going to tap on something really big and scary or really traumatic, I definitely recommend working with an EFT practitioner, preferably one who is also a licensed therapist if you're doing any real deep trauma work.
Yeah.
When I'm working with clients, I do EFT tapping with a lot of my coaching clients, mostly around money and clarity, kind of all intertwines. But if we're getting into any of that, like real deep trauma stuff, I always refer out to therapists. So you can always find, practitioners who are also therapists. But for, everyday anxiety, being pissed, you could have tapped on the roundabout issue.
So if somebody wanted to work with you, Cassie, are you taking clients? Like you would be able to take on somebody who wanted to work with you to do some tapping?
Definitely. You can always shoot me an email.
Okay.
And if I'm not the right fit to work with people, there's a whole list on that EFTinternational.org. There's
Cool.
a whole list of folks. You can also find free resources on YouTube. There's a ton of people who have a ton of free videos on YouTube that I still also tap along to. Brad Yates is a really great one. He has all kinds of different videos on all kinds of different things.
I've seen some of his stuff. He's cool.
Yeah, he's cool. He's a fun, quirky guy. And I find that the words he uses in his tapping videos tend to be words that work for me. So it's easy to tap along. I don't have to think a lot about it. If you find somebody and you're tapping along in the video and the words that they're using aren't quite right for you, change them up when you're repeating it back to words that work for you.
That's awesome. I'm so excited to try it and work on it and get better at it and have it come like easily. Because I don't know, maybe that's my perfectionistic piece. I don't want to be perfect at it, but I don't want to have to think about it.
Yeah.
I want it to just come. So, and that's just going to take practice, I'm sure, for me to get there, but I'm excited to do it.
We'll on our social media put together a little visual that
cool.
that'll have the tapping points. So
yeah,
we'll upload that.
Okay. Yeah. Give me a little bit of time to get, my feet under me and do it a little bit. And then I'll totally report back and let you know if my startle response is getting less intense, because that would be ideal.
I also say, so rather than like, I need 15 minutes, because everyone tells me I don't have time to do all this rounds of tapping thing. Take 2 seconds, do a round while you're sitting on the toilet. I mean, men, you also are sitting on the toilet, hopefully once a day. You got 2 minutes. Or before in your car, before you come into the house.
Yeah. Will it help with sleeping, or will it activate things so that I'm more awake?
Well, don't stop if you've activated a little bit more. Keep tapping until it comes down. I would say prior to sleeping, especially if you have some issues with sleeping,
that's me.
Don't tap, do the touch and breathe.
Okay.
So that's going to help kind of downregulate the nervous system a little bit.
Okay, maybe I'll do some essential oil, tap and breathe for sleeping.
Yes.
I'll get back to you on that as well. I have a lot of work to do, Cassie. Thanks for teaching us. I appreciate it.
You're so welcome. And I hope if people are interested in EFT tapping, or if this piqued your interest at all, that you do some research and let us know if you've done EFT tapping, or if all of this made you even more anxious or excited. If it made you more anxious, you can tap on that and it should help.
I love it. Thanks, Cassie. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.